See, Indian Armed Forces enjoy great reputation with United Nations. Right from the earliest peacekeeping missions, we have been taking part in UN missions in Cyprus, in Middle East, in peacekeeping operations in Korea, and all over. In 1989-90 was the time there was Cold War which was going on. So there were large number of Cold War induced situations which were created in Africa, and many peacekeeping missions were applied over there. So I was lucky to go to Angola in 1991 in Africa, and there were people from 50 plus countries, armed forces, and there were civilian and other workforce. So total we had representation from 90 plus countries in some form or the other. So what happened in Angola is that a civil war kind of situation took place. There was a rebel group which did not accept the results of election. It was called UNITA, led by Jonas Savimbi, and they sort of were very close to the capital. So they sort of took control of a city next to capital, and we had international workforce there. We had women over there, we had ladies working there, and one of them was in family way also. She was pregnant. So we needed to take them out of that place. So we tied up. We went in United Nations helicopter which are colored white. Interestingly, United Nations is not such a efficient or a foolproof organization. They had outsourced this helicopter operations to a Canadian company, which in turn was using Russian Mi-8 helicopters on lease and being flown by Russian pilots who had taken part in Afghanistan operations. Interestingly, Russian pilots spoke very little English, just yes, no type of English. We didn't know Russian. We were flying in that. So as we neared a town called as Casito, and later I will tell them to take a photograph of a trophy that I have of that and maybe mesh it here if it is possible. So in Casito, when we were going to land in a playfield in a school, suddenly there was firing. There was RPG which was fired, rocket propelled grenade. There was fire of AK machine guns, and next thing that happened is there was a graze impact on the helicopter. Helicopter was unstable, it was shaking violently, and some bullets came through the windshield and they hit the pilot also. Now I was standing between the two pilots. There were two pilots in that. Firstly, nobody was willing to go on such a mission. So we had with great difficulty convinced one Red Cross worker who was connected with that lady who had to be evacuated, and my boss whom I convinced to come with me, Egyptian, and me. So three of us were there. We were going there. I was standing between the seats, and then the pilot was hit. I remember distinctly telling the pilots, pull out, Luanda, capital, capital. This is how we were communicating. I never knew Russian and they didn't know English. But luckily the pilots had combat experience. They pulled out of that fire and we somehow managed to limp back to the capital, which was not very far luckily, and we landed safely. Later we asked those people that why did you fire to an helicopter? They said all rebels are not in our control. We cannot vouch for everybody. You had coordinated, but some people did not accept our orders. So now, see, you can't give up in life. You have to find resilience, like we have done during COVID, by online activities, by web-based activities, by webinars. So here, now what we did is, we could have given up, but we found a person called as Bula Matadi. I knew him well. Now Bula Matadi was number 3 in the hierarchy of UNITA, a retired general who had fought in Goa operations, spoke a little good English, spoke a little bit of Hindi also. So we convinced Bula Matadi that you stand between the two pilots. And for 10 days on their rebel radio, we broadcast this, that next mission will come after 10 days and Bula Matadi, your number 3, will be standing in between the pilots. So all rebels need to take notice of that. And we took a different flight route. You have to find resilience. Now the problem was nobody was willing to go. Not even that Egyptian colonel. He said, why should I go on a suicidal mission? His country banned it. So it was me and that Red Cross worker. We went again. This time we were successful. So you have to find resilience. You have to find answers. You cannot give up. And another thing that happened with me in UN, which I would like to tell you, that a little later, after a month or so, the capital itself came under some kind of rebel actions, attack or rebel actions. So in one of their actions, they attacked the ammunition dump. The ammunition dump started blowing up. So the projectiles would take off on their own, what is called a phenomena of cooking. Ammunition gets, in heat, ammunition gets triggered on its own. There is sympathetic detonation also. So projectile flew into our camp and our camp was literally under attack by those projectiles. So there was chaos, and our political head of that mission was a lady. She, sensing this tension, had gone, she was a British. She went to British embassy and she was there. Our military boss was from an African country. He also went away to his embassy, and there was another brigadier who went away, and finally I was chief of operations. I had to take charge. So for close to 1 week, I was in charge of that entire mission in trying to organize safety. People were staying in isolated places. We were in a main camp also. We had to organize water. Everything had to be done. So when that crisis finished, we had a session for confidence building, a debriefing kind of thing. So the top hierarchy now wanted to speak to the people who were there in that mission, peacekeepers and all. There was no webinar possible those days. They were physically sitting. So what is interesting is, sorry, I'll have to talk something to blow my own trumpet. All those people from countries like Canada and all, they don't listen to this thing. They started thumping their desks and they said, we want to hear KJ say. KJ, KJ. So as a major, I was requested to come and brief everybody. So the fact that I took charge, took risk, I suddenly assumed control much beyond my responsibility and could do things which brought very good name to our country, because ambassadors from various countries would not go to the head of the mission or chief of staff. They would come directly to me. They said, we want to meet KJ and we want to tie up with him to evacuate our people. So if you take responsibility, if you are proactive, if you take risks, then life will give you opportunities. If you decide to sit back, play safe, then the opportunities will bypass you, will leave you behind, and then you will only repent, because opportunity gives you a chance, but then you have to grab it with both hands. So no pain, no gain. Without risk, you will not make it, but risks have to be calculated. You have to have a risk mitigation strategy in place. In my case, some of the risks, when I look back today, were foolish, but I was young. I was entitled to those. So choose your risks well, but do take the risks. Push the envelope. Don't sit back. Because much later, when I was army commander, I was making Western Command Museum. And interestingly, my headquarters at its inception was not a permanent kind, it was supposed to be a temporary. So in 47, when it was raised, it was asked to operate off Viceroy's train. It used to operate off that train. Now the challenge was to recreate that train and how to get hold of a wagon, engine and that rail line and all that. So initially everybody said not possible, impossible, can't be done. But all my staff said, it just can't be done, we can't even afford it. Yeah. All these kind of problems were brought to me. But I decided to push the envelope. So I wrote to Railway Board Chairman, Railway Minister, went and met them. When I explained the import of the thing, that only headquarters in the world which worked off a train, and we want to create a heritage, we want to create that feeling, they joined my effort. So they gave me a coach which was lying at Indore. They gave me a railway engine, locomotive, steam, which was lying in Shakur Basti. Then the problem came of transportation. But then somebody said, how will you lay the railway line? But interestingly, all of that is in place. You can go to Chandi Mandir, you can see it. So my mantra is that when you reach an apex level, then you must flirt with impossible. You should not accept everything that it is impossible. Impossible, interestingly, is a word which if you write down, it really means I am possible. So push the envelope. Don't accept the status quo. Go for the change. As I conclude my talk and my interaction with you, I would like to tell you that you must cultivate a sense of empathy. You must always work as a team, because it's not your individual brilliance which will win matches. It is teams which will win matches. If you follow soccer, see when last World Cup happened, who were there in semi-final? Okay, France was there, but did Messi's team reach there? No, it didn't reach there. Italy was not there. Did Ronaldo's team reach there? No, it was not there. Portugal was not there. Was Brazil with Neymar there? No, it wasn't there. So, superstars alone will not win matches. The second finalist, incidentally, was Croatia. Croatia didn't have any superstar. The only recognizable player Croatia had made a stupid mistake. In the first match, he was not in the starting team, in the starting 11. The coach was playing a strategy, and that coach is successful because his team was runners-up. From being a dark horse, they came second. So here he was not using him in starting 11. He fielded him much later in the game. So after that, he took offense and he left the team. He went away. And he posted it on the Facebook that soon all of you will join me on holiday, and he derided his team. But his team reached the finals. They had teamwork. They won the silver medal. Incidentally, he missed the silver medal. So be a team player, develop a sense of camaraderie, develop empathy, and also cultivate a sense of humor. Enjoy life, because this journey will not happen to you again and again. I would like to finish with a quote which I saw on the golf course, which I enjoy now I enjoy playing golf now after re-retirement. On the fairway of life, pause and smell the roses. For you will get to play this round only once. So if you do not appreciate the roses, if you don't enjoy the journey, then later you will curse yourself. Was it worth it? If you did not enjoy your friends, camaraderie, humor, empathy and the journey itself. मेरे दोस्तों, सफर का मजा लीजिए, मंजिलें तो आती ही रहेंगी। थैंक यू, जय हिंद।